The last box of vintage movie posters had just arrived when I got the call that would destroy 6 months of hard work and drain my savings account. I was standing in my newly renovated basement, admiring the custom-built entertainment center that had cost 3 months' salary, when my mother's name flashed across my phone screen. "Sarah, honey, you're always so good with family," she began, using that tone that always preceded a request I wouldn't like. "And your basement is so big now." I should have known right then, should have heard the warning bells. But I was distracted, running my hand along the leather reclining seats I'd finally finished paying off. "Mom, I'm kind of busy right now," I said, imagining the movie night I had planned for Friday. My first real gathering since buying the house 2 years ago. "It's about Jason," she continued as if I hadn't spoken. "He and Maria, well, they're having some troubles. Jason, my younger brother, had always been Mom's favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong, even when he dropped out of college to find himself, or when he married Maria after knowing her for just 3 months. "What kind of troubles?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Financial ones. The startup he invested in, it didn't work out. They're losing the house." I closed my eyes, remembering the countless times I'd warned Jason about putting all his money into risky ventures. He laughed it off, saying I was too cautious, too traditional with my steady accounting job and sensible investments. "That's terrible, Mom, but they just need a place to stay for a few weeks, just until they get back on their feet." "A few weeks?" I echoed, looking around at my carefully curated space. The space I'd spent 6 months and $35,000 transforming from a musty storage area into a luxury home theater. "They have nowhere else to go, Sarah. And with the twins and the baby—" "Mom, I just finished renovating. I haven't even had a chance to—" "I already gave them your spare key." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You what?" "They were desperate, honey. Maria's parents won't help, and your brother is too proud to ask his friends. Family helps family." I wanted to scream that family also respects boundaries, asks permission, doesn't make decisions about other people's homes. But with Mom, it was always useless to argue once she decided something. "When?" I managed to ask. "They're probably there now." I hung up without saying goodbye, something I'd never done to my mother before. Racing upstairs, I heard them before I saw them. The sound of children crying, furniture being moved, voices echoing through my once peaceful home. Jason stood in my living room, bouncing his 8-month-old daughter Emma, while the 4-year-old twins, Lucas and Sophia, ran circles around my antique coffee table. "Hey, sis," he called out, as if this was a casual visit. "Mom said you'd be cool with us crashing here for a bit." Maria emerged from my kitchen, her designer purse clashing with her worried expression. "Sarah, thank you so much. We promise it won't be for long." Behind them, I could see boxes, lots of boxes. And through my open basement door, I watched in horror as 2 movers carried down a bunk bed. "What are you doing?" I finally found my voice. "That's my home theater." "Was your home theater?" Jason corrected with an apologetic smile. "We need the space for the kids, but don't worry. We'll put everything in storage. Mom's paying for it." With Mom's money, or with mine? I wondered, knowing how these things usually worked out. "Jason, you can't just move in without asking me. I have plans. I have—" "Please, Sarah," Maria cut in, tears welling in her eyes. "We have nowhere else to go. Jason's startup failed. We lost everything. The bank foreclosed on our house this morning." I looked at my sister-in-law, really looked at her. Gone was the confident woman who used to post Instagram stories about luxury vacations and designer shopping sprees. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her clothes wrinkled, her usual perfect makeup absent. "How bad is it?" I asked Jason. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Bad. Really bad. I didn't just lose the house. I lost everything. Our savings, our investments, even Maria's inheritance. The inheritance her parents gave you for a down payment on your house. I felt sick. The money they specifically said was only for property. I thought I could double it, he mumbled. The projections looked so good. A crash from the kitchen interrupted us. Sophia had found my crystal wine glasses, a housewarming gift from my boss. "No, sweetie." Maria rushed to clean up the mess while Lucas took advantage of the distraction to draw on my wallpaper with markers. I sank onto my sofa, watching my carefully ordered life dissolve into chaos. The movers continued bringing in furniture, children's dressers, toys, a changing table. My beautiful basement was being transformed into a makeshift apartment. "It's just temporary," Jason assured me, still bouncing Emma. "A few weeks, maybe a month, just until I can get back on my feet." I'd heard that before. When he needed money for college books, but spent it on a spring break trip. When he borrowed my car and returned it with an empty tank and mysterious dents. When he needed a small loan for his first failed business venture. But this was different. This wasn't just Jason being irresponsible. This was 3 small children and a desperate family with nowhere else to go. "We'll help with utilities," Maria offered. "And I can cook and clean." "And I'm looking for work," Jason added quickly. "I've got some leads. Tech companies are always hiring." I wanted to point out that tech companies might be hesitant to hire someone whose startup had just spectacularly failed, but I bit my tongue. Emma chose that moment to spit up on my shoulder. Of course, I'd instinctively taken her when she reached for me. The sour smell of baby vomit mixed with the lingering scent of new carpet from my basement. "Ground rules," I said finally, because what else could I do? "If you're staying here, we need ground rules." Jason's face lit up with relief. "Anything you want, sis. You're the best." Over the next hour, as the movers finished transforming my basement and the twins systematically destroyed my living room's feng shui, I laid out my terms. 3 months maximum. They would contribute to utilities and groceries. The kids would stay out of my home office. No more surprise decisions from Mom. Jason had to actively job hunt, not just network. Maria would handle the children's schedules. My main floor would remain my space. They agreed to everything eagerly, too eagerly, I thought with a sinking feeling. That night, after everyone had finally settled in, I sat in my kitchen drinking wine from a coffee mug, all my wine glasses being casualties of day 1. Through the basement door, I could hear the twins arguing about bed placement, Maria's gentle shushing, Jason's off-key lullaby to Emma. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "You're doing the right thing, honey. Family first." I typed and deleted several responses before finally settling on. "Next time, ask first." Looking at my calendar, I saw Friday's movie night plans. My friends would have to wait to see my renovation. By the time Jason and his family left, the leather recliners would probably be stained with juice boxes, the surround sound speakers tested by endless episodes of Peppa Pig, and my vintage movie posters replaced by alphabet charts. But as I heard little feet padding up the stairs and Sophia's sleepy voice calling, "Auntie Sarah, need water," I realized something was already shifting. My carefully planned, perfectly organized life was being invaded by chaos and noise. And love. "Coming, sweetie," I called back, reaching for a plastic cup this time. Maybe Mom was right about family first. But she was dead wrong about one thing. This wouldn't be just a few weeks. I knew my brother too well for that. 1 month into our temporary living arrangement, I learned that living with my brother's family was like trying to contain a hurricane in a teacup. Chaotic, messy, and ultimately impossible. My morning routine, once a peaceful ritual of coffee and news headlines, now involved navigating a minefield of Lego pieces while mediating twin disputes over who got the last dinosaur-shaped waffle. "Jason," I called down the basement stairs one Monday morning. "Your LinkedIn profile still says entrepreneur and visionary. Don't you think it's time to update that?" He'd emerged looking disheveled, Emma attached to his hip as always. "I'm networking, Sarah. These things take time." "Networking doesn't pay bills," I replied, pointing to the stack of mail on the counter. The utility bill had doubled since their arrival. Maria, at least, was trying. She picked up part-time work at a local daycare, bringing Emma with her and getting a discount for the twins. But her salary barely covered their basic expenses, let alone contributed to the household. The breaking point came during week 6. I returned from work to find my home office had been reorganized. "We needed space for the kids' homeschool area," Mom explained cheerfully. She'd let herself in again, despite our agreement about surprise visits. "And you hardly use this room during the day." My desk had been pushed against the wall, my filing system dismantled, and half the room converted into a makeshift classroom, complete with tiny tables and chairs. "Mom," I said through gritted teeth, "this is my home office. I work from here 3 days a week." "You can work from your bedroom those days," she suggested, arranging alphabet cards on my bulletin board. "The kids need structure, Sarah. You don't want them falling behind." I looked at the twins, happily coloring at their new tables, and bit back my initial response. When did they stop going to daycare? The discount wasn't enough, Jason admitted, appearing in the doorway. "We can't afford it anymore." That night, after everyone was asleep, I did the math. Between increased utilities, groceries for 5 extra people, and the various small expenses that kept cropping up, I was spending an extra $1,200 a month. My carefully planned budget was in shambles. But it wasn't just the money. It was the constant erosion of boundaries, the steady creep of chaos into every corner of my life. The basement home theater was now unrecognizable. My leather recliners had been pushed against the wall to make room for toy storage. The surround sound speakers were covered with baby-proofing foam. The vintage movie posters had been replaced by educational charts and children's artwork. "We need to talk," I told Jason the next morning, cornering him before he could start his daily routine of job searching, which seemed to involve a lot of social media and very few actual applications. "About the office?" "I know. I should have asked. But Mom insisted." "About everything." I cut him off. "This isn't working." His face fell. "Sarah, please. We're trying. Maria's looking for better work, and I've got some promising leads." "You had promising leads for 6 weeks. Meanwhile, I'm drowning in expenses. My house is turning into a daycare center, and Mom keeps making decisions about my space without consulting me." "What do you want me to do?" he asked, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "We have nowhere else to go." "I want you to get a real job," I said bluntly. "Any job. Stock shelves, deliver packages, whatever it takes. Stop waiting for another startup opportunity to magically appear." "That's beneath me," he protested. I have an MBA. An MBA you haven't used since you dropped out of corporate life to chase get-rich-quick schemes. I reminded him. Your family needs stability, not another big break. The conversation was interrupted by crashes from upstairs, followed by twin wails. We rushed up to find both kids covered in flour. My kitchen looking like a bomb had gone off. We wanted to make breakfast for everyone, Safia explained through tears. Maria appeared in her work uniform, already late for her shift. I'll clean it up after work, Sarah. I promise. Looking at the disaster zone that used to be my pristine kitchen, something inside me snapped. No, I said firmly. Jason will clean it up, right now, because he's home all day anyway, and it's time he started pulling his weight. Sarah. Mom's voice came from the doorway. Of course she'd let herself in again. That's no way to talk to your brother. My brother? I laughed, the sound a little hysterical. You mean the one who moved his entire family into my house without asking? The one who's letting his wife work double shifts while he networks? That brother. The twins started crying harder. Emma, picking up on the tension, began to wail from her playpen. Maybe this was a mistake, Maria said quietly, looking between us. Maybe we should try to find somewhere else. No, Mom interrupted. Sarah doesn't mean it. She's just tired. Aren't you, honey? I was tired. Tired of being the responsible one. Tired of watching my brother avoid reality. Tired of my mother enabling him. I do mean it, I said. Things need to change. Today. What followed was the most uncomfortable family meeting of our lives. Around my flour-covered kitchen table, with the kids banished to the basement, we laid everything bare. Their debts were worse than they'd admitted. Not just the house and startup losses, but credit cards, personal loans, even money owed to Maria's parents that they didn't know about yet. No more hiding, I insisted. We need to see the whole picture. By the end of the day, we had a plan. A real one. Not Jason's usual vague promises. Jason would take a job at our cousin's construction company, not glamorous, but steady pay and benefits. Maria would continue at the daycare, but look for administrative work in the evenings. The twins would return to regular daycare once they could afford it. Mom would stop intervening without permission. They had 4 months to save enough for a small apartment. I would help them create a realistic budget and debt repayment plan. And my home office goes back to being my office. Jason looked like he wanted to argue but nodded instead. For the first time since they'd moved in, I saw something change in his expression. Resignation giving way to determination. That night, after the kitchen was clean, Jason did it himself. The kids were asleep, and Maria had returned from work. My brother sat beside me on the porch. I really messed up, he said quietly. Yes, you did. I was so sure I could make it work. The startup, the investments, I thought I was smarter than everyone else. You are smart, I told him. You're just terrible at admitting when you're wrong. He laughed softly. Remember when we were kids, and I convinced you I could fly, if I just believed hard enough? You broke your arm jumping off the garage. Yeah, but for a second there, I really thought I could do it. We sat in silence for a moment, watching moths dance around the porch light. I'm sorry, he said finally, for taking advantage, for not asking first, for letting Mom bulldoze you. I know. We'll make it right, he promised. All of it. Looking at him in the dim light, I saw my little brother again. Not the fake entrepreneur or the desperate father, but the kid who always believed impossible things could happen. Maybe this time, with the right support and the right motivation, he'd prove himself right. 3 months after our kitchen table intervention, life had settled into a new rhythm, not the peaceful one I'd originally envisioned for my home, but something workable, if chaotic. Jason, true to his word, took the construction job. Every morning, he left before dawn, his MBA and startup dreams temporarily shelved for a hard hat and work boots. The first week, he could barely move in the evenings, his desk job body unaccustomed to physical labor. But he never complained. Made foreman's assistant today, he announced one evening, his face sunburned but proud. Pay bump starts next month. The changes in him were subtle but significant. The designer clothes were replaced by worn jeans and work shirts. His hands, once manicured for business meetings, grew calloused. Most importantly, the desperate, searching look in his eyes since the startup failed was gone. Maria flourished in unexpected ways too. She landed an evening receptionist position at a medical office, working opposite shifts from Jason, so someone was always with the kids. Her daycare job became part-time, but the employee discount remained, allowing the twins to return to regular care. But not everything smoothed out so easily. "I just don't understand why you're being so rigid," Mom said during one of her now weekly, rather than daily, visits. "They're making progress. Why insist they move out by the deadline?" We were sitting in my reclaimed home office, which had finally returned to its proper function after a week of emotional twin tantrums about losing their classroom. "Because they need to stand on their own," I explained, showing her their savings progress chart. "Look, they're on track for the apartment deposit. They have steady incomes. Staying here longer would only delay their independence. But the kids love it here. And your basement is so much bigger than any apartment they could afford." "Mom," I cut her off firmly, "do you remember what you always told us about swimming?" She blinked at the apparent non sequitur. "What?" "You said we had to let go of the pool edge eventually, or we'd never learn to swim." This is their pool edge moment. The real challenge came when Maria's parents finally discovered the truth about their daughter's inheritance. They showed up unannounced one Sunday, their anger palpable before a single word was spoken. "How dare you lose our money?" Maria's father thundered at Jason. "That was for our grandchildren's future." "Poppy, please." Maria tried to intervene. "We're fixing things." "Fixing things?" "By living in your sister-in-law's basement, working like common laborers." I saw the old Jason flash across my brother's face, the proud one who thought manual labor was beneath him. But then he straightened his shoulders, his work-rovined hands steady. "Yes," he said simply. "We're fixing things by working honest jobs and paying our debts, including yours, sir. We've set aside 20% of each paycheck for repayment." He showed them the budget spreadsheet we created, the steady progress of their savings, the detailed plan for repaying every dollar they'd lost. Maria's mother studied the numbers carefully. "This will take years." "Yes," Maria agreed. "But we'll do it. We owe you that much." The confrontation ended in tentative peace, though Maria's parents left shaking their heads. But that evening, something unexpected arrived. A text from Maria's father to Jason. "My brother needs skilled workers for his contracting business. Better pay. Room for advancement. Call him if you're interested." "See," I told Jason as he stared at his phone. "Sometimes humble pie tastes like opportunity." The kids adapted better than anyone expected. Once they got over losing their home office classroom, the twins actually preferred the structure of regular daycare. They made friends, brought home art projects, and stopped treating every surface of my house as a potential canvas. Emma learned to walk in my living room, her first tottering steps capturing everyone's hearts. Even I had to admit that baby-proofing my carefully curated space was worth it for moments like that. But it wasn't all heartwarming progress. The deadline for moving out loomed closer, and despite their best efforts, Jason and Maria were still slightly short of their goal. Maybe we could extend it just a little, Jason suggested one evening, showing me their numbers. Just 2 more weeks. No, I said firmly. You're close enough. Sometimes you have to jump even if you're not quite ready. But the security deposit is covered, I told him, pulling out an envelope. Consider it a one-time investment in your independence. He started to protest, but I held up my hand. This isn't charity. It's a loan, with interest, added to your repayment plan. But it's also a vote of confidence. Don't make me regret it. The apartment they found wasn't glamorous. 2 bedrooms in an older building with shared laundry and no dishwasher. But it was clean, safe, and most importantly, theirs. Moving day arrived with mixed emotions. The twins alternated between excitement about their new room and tears about leaving their basement kingdom. Emma toddled around the increasingly empty space, confused by the changes. We can't thank you enough, Maria said as we packed the last box. Not just for the space, but for, she gestured vaguely, encompassing everything that had changed over the past 4 months. For kicking our butts into gear, Jason suggested, earning a playful swat from his wife. For believing we could swim, she corrected, making me smile at the echo of my conversation with Mom. That night, after they'd gone, I stood in my basement for the first time in months. The space was empty again, waiting to become whatever I chose. The walls showed marks where the bunk beds had stood. The carpet bore impressions from the weight of toys and furniture. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. It's too quiet there now, isn't it? And it was. The house suddenly felt enormous, echoing with memories of chaos, crying, and laughter. But as I looked around, I didn't see a ruined home theater anymore. Instead, I saw the space where my niece took her first steps, where my nephews learned to read, where my brother learned to grow up. It's just right, I texted back. Then I opened my laptop and started browsing for new movie posters. Different ones this time. Family films, animations, classics that small visitors might enjoy during weekend sleepovers. Because sometimes the best renovations aren't the ones we plan, but the ones life plans for us. And sometimes, letting go of the pool edge isn't just about teaching others to swim. It's about learning to adapt to new waters ourselves. 1 year after the great basement takeover, I sat in my restored home theater, but it wasn't quite the same space I'd originally envisioned. The leather recliners remained, but they'd been joined by a comfortable sectional sofa, perfect for family movie nights. The vintage posters now shared wall space with framed family photos and some of the twins' better artistic creations. Every Sunday, like clockwork, my house once again filled with noise and chaos as Jason's family came for dinner and movies. It had become our tradition, one that even Mom admitted worked better than having them live here. Aunt Sarah, Sophia called, running down the basement stairs. Dad got promoted. Jason followed more slowly, carrying Emma, while Lucas helped Maria with the food. My brother looked different now, confident but humbled, successful in a way his startup dreams never achieved. Lead foreman, he announced proudly. Maria's father's brother says I have a knack for managing crews. Who would have thought your MBA would come in handy in construction? I teased. Actually, he said, settling onto the sofa, I'm starting night classes next month. Construction management. Turns out I love building things, just not the way I thought I would. The twins had flourished in their new, smaller space. Their grades improved, they made steady friends, and they learned the value of sharing rooms and responsibilities. Even Emma seemed to thrive in their cozy apartment, though she still considered my basement her second home. We made the final payment to my parents last week. Maria told me quietly while we set up dinner. Your budget plan worked. You made it work? I corrected her. I just provided the spreadsheets. Mom arrived last, carrying her famous apple pie and news about a single-story house for rent in our neighborhood. It's perfect for them, she insisted. Much better than that apartment. Mom, Jason and I said simultaneously, sharing a knowing look. I know, she sighed. No more meddling. But I'm allowed to share information, aren't I? Actually, they had already started looking for a house, but on their own terms this time. Small, affordable, within their carefully planned budget. No more overreaching. No more counting on windfalls or startup success. Remember when you said it would only be a few weeks? I asked Jason later as we watched the kids argue over movie choices. Remember when you said 3 months maximum, he countered. Guess we both learned something about plans. The basement renovation had cost me $35,000 and never quite fulfilled its original purpose. But watching Emma fall asleep in her father's lap while the twins quoted lines from The Princess Bride, I realized it had served a far better one. My phone buzzed with a message from my contractor. We'd finally scheduled the kitchen remodel I'd been planning before Jason's family arrived. Still want to do it? He asked, knowing how the last renovation had turned out. I looked at my family, crowded together in the basement that had become the heart of our Sunday nights. The space that had taught us all about compromise, growth, and unconditional love disguised as tough love. Yes, I texted back, but maybe with a bigger table this time. Because sometimes the best investments aren't in fancy home theaters or perfect renovations, but in the people who fill our spaces with life, love, and even a little chaos. And my basement? It finally became the perfect entertainment room, just not the one I'd planned. Instead of a private retreat, it became a weekly gathering place, where family movies meant actual family, and where the best shows weren't on the screen, but in the real-life drama of watching people you love grow and change. Next week's my turn to pick the movie, Lucas announced as they prepared to leave. As long as it's not another superhero film, Sophie groaned. Actually, Jason said, I was thinking we could watch some home videos from when you guys lived here. The twins cheered while I smiled, remembering the chaos captured in those recordings. Sometimes the best stories are the ones we live through, even when they don't go according to plan, or especially then.